The TV studio buzzed with energy as cameras rolled, lights beamed, and the audience settled in. This was not just another show. This was an ambush. Across from the host sat CeeDee Lamb, calm, composed, and ready. The host, a well-known critic of athletes and celebrities, smirked into the camera. "Tell me," she said, leaning forward, "why do people worship these athletes like heroes? What do they actually contribute?" Lamb did not react. He had seen this before. The host pressed harder. "You make millions for catching a ball. What exactly makes you so special?" The audience chuckled. But when Lamb finally responded, the entire studio fell silent. CeeDee Lamb knew exactly what this was. He had been invited onto the show under the pretense of talking about football, but from the moment he walked in, he could tell. This was a setup. The host, a sharp-tongued political commentator, had built her career on controversy. She thrived on tearing down celebrities, athletes, and public figures. And tonight, Lamb was her target. The second the cameras started rolling, she wasted no time. She pulled up graphics of massive NFL contracts, images of luxury cars and mansions, and statistics about struggling families. Her voice was sharp as she leaned forward, putting on her best gotcha expression. "How does it feel?" she asked, smirking, "knowing you make more money in a single game than most Americans make in their entire lives?" The audience laughed and clapped. They were eating it up. Lamb? He stayed calm, unfazed, because he had seen this game before. The host smirked. "You think that is fair?" she pressed, tilting her head. "That you get to live like a king while teachers, nurses, and first responders struggle?" The audience murmured in agreement. A few even shouted in support. Lamb exhaled slowly. Then finally, he spoke. "You know what is funny?" he asked, his voice steady. The host's smile widened, thinking she had him cornered. "What is that?" Lamb leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "I do more for struggling families than you ever will." The audience gasped. The host's smirk disappeared. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The same crowd that had been laughing just seconds ago now sat still, waiting for what would come next. The host fumbled with her papers, suddenly less sure of herself. Lamb didn't need a script. He had just flipped the entire conversation on its head, and he was just getting started. The host's smug smile flickered. She had expected CeeDee Lamb to stumble, to fumble his words, to get defensive. Instead, he had flipped the script on her. She shifted in her chair, quickly glancing down at her notes, searching for a way to regain control. She let out a forced chuckle, shaking her head. "Oh, so now you are a philanthropist?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Lamb did not flinch. He leaned back in his chair, relaxed, unfazed. "No," he said, "but I put my money where my mouth is." The audience murmured. Some nodded. Others stayed locked on the unfolding moment. The host tensed, sensing that she had just lost control of the conversation. She quickly switched gears, pulling up a screen showing images of NFL players buying luxury cars, designer jewelry, and multi-million-dollar homes. "This," she said, gesturing at the display behind her, "is where your money goes. Meanwhile, hard-working Americans can barely afford rent. You expect people to respect that?" A few members of the audience clapped. Lamb exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "Let me ask you something," he said, his voice still steady and calm. "You see an athlete buy a nice car, and suddenly, we are the problem?" The host narrowed her eyes. "Well, when—" Lamb cut her off. "What about CEOs making 50 times what their employees do? What about politicians flying private while telling people to tighten their belts?" The host froze. The audience perked up. Some of them clapped. "You do not come after them," Lamb continued. "You do not put up graphics about their salaries, but an athlete, a man who spent his whole life working to be great. You got a problem with that?" The host opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated. Lamb nodded. "That is what I thought. The audience reacted instantly, cheering, clapping, even whistling. The host forced a tight smile, but she was rattled. Because she realized something. This interview? It was not going the way she planned. The host shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had lost control of the conversation, and she knew it. But CeeDee Lamb? He was just getting warmed up. He leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. "You sit here," he said, his voice calm but firm, "in a fancy studio, making millions, tearing people down for clicks and ratings." The audience gasped. The energy shifted again. The host forced a laugh, waving him off. "Come on now." "No, let us be real," Lamb cut in. "You talk about fairness, but how much of your paycheck goes to struggling families?" The host's smile vanished. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Lamb leaned back, letting his words hang in the air. The silence in the studio was thick. The same audience that had been laughing and clapping earlier was now completely still, hanging on his every word. Lamb pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen were photos of the community centers, scholarships, and charities he had funded. Kids in underprivileged schools wearing jerseys with his name on them. Families he had personally helped. "This is what I do," Lamb said, his voice unwavering. "What do you do besides criticize from behind a desk?" The audience exploded. Some people stood up and clapped. Others whistled. Even a few members of the production team grinned behind the cameras. The host was speechless. Her entire job revolved around dominating conversations, controlling narratives, and making her guests uncomfortable. But tonight, she was the one in the hot seat. She fumbled with her papers, searching for a way to recover. But it was too late. Because this moment was already out of her hands. The internet was watching. The clips were being recorded. And before she could even blink, CeeDee Lamb had just flipped the entire narrative on her. And he was not even finished yet. The host was flustered. She shuffled her notes, her eyes darting to the production team, looking for any escape. This was not how this was supposed to go. She cleared her throat, forcing a tight smile. "Well," she said, trying to regain her footing, "it is easy to donate a little money when you have millions sitting in the bank." Lamb chuckled, shaking his head. "A little money?" he repeated, tilting his head. The audience murmured, sensing that this was about to get even worse for the host. Lamb pulled up another image on his phone, a list of his foundation's contributions, 6-figure donations to schools, sponsorships for single mothers, housing assistance programs, free football camps for underprivileged kids. He turned the screen toward the cameras. The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, claps, a few cheers. "This is a little money to you?" Lamb asked, his voice even. "Because I do not see your name on this list." The host's face turned red. She forced a chuckle, trying to laugh it off. "Well, No, let me finish," Lamb interrupted, his tone calm but sharp. The audience roared at the power move. "You sit here," he continued, "talking about what is fair. But the truth is, you don't actually care about struggling families. If you did, you would be out there helping them, instead of sitting in a studio, pointing fingers at people who do." The host had no words. For the first time in her own show, she had nothing to say. The audience erupted. People clapped, some stood up, and a few even shouted their approval. Lamb let the applause settle before speaking again. "I do not need to prove anything to you," he said. "The work speaks for itself." He stood up, adjusting his mic, ready to leave. The host, desperate to salvage the moment, tried to force a laugh. "Oh, walking out already?" she teased. Lamb paused, turned, and smirked. "No," he said. "I just know when a conversation is over." The audience lost it. Cheers, whistles, a standing ovation. The host, humiliated, because she had just lost control of her own show. The moment CeeDee Lamb walked off set, the internet took over. Clips of the exchange flooded social media within minutes. CeeDee Lamb just destroyed a talk show host on live TV. Liberal host tries to embarrass an NFL star, instantly regrets it. CeeDee walked in as a guest and walked out as the host. The video was everywhere, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Millions of views in hours. People from all sides chimed in. Some defended the host, saying she was just asking tough questions. But the overwhelming reaction? CeeDee Lamb had shut her down with class, facts, and dignity. Athletes, celebrities, and even other talk show hosts reacted to the moment. A well-known sports analyst tweeted, "That is how you handle the haters. Stay cool, stay real, and let the work speak for itself." Respect to @CeeDee Lamb. Another NFL player wrote, "They always come for us, but when it is time for them to answer questions, silence. CeeDee just gave a masterclass in shutting down nonsense." Meanwhile, the host was scrambling for damage control. She released a statement, calling it a lively debate, and saying, "I welcome all perspectives, even if we disagree." But nobody was buying it. People dug up clips of her past interviews, exposing a pattern of attacking athletes and celebrities. This time, however, she picked the wrong target. And now? Her show was getting flooded with dislikes, negative comments, and backlash. Meanwhile, CeeDee Lamb? He did not say a word. He did not need to. His actions, his response, and the truth behind his work spoke for itself. And the internet was making sure everyone knew it. Because in the end, CeeDee did not just win an argument. He earned the respect of millions. And the host? She would never forget this moment. CeeDee Lamb never raised his voice. He never got defensive. He let his actions speak louder than words. The host tried to humiliate him on national TV, but in the end, she was the one who got exposed. Some people tear others down for attention. Others use their success to uplift others. Lamb? He made sure the world knew the difference. What do you think? Should more athletes stand up when they are unfairly criticized? Comment below, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful NFL stories.